Welcome to the wonderful world of Ghastly. Today, I think I'm going to talk about near death or close to dying situations. And I had a experience. I won't get into all the details of what exactly happened because it's personal. But I had a violent interaction with somebody and I got stabbed. I guess I'm telling more than I anticipated I would tell. So I fall down and I'm bleeding and I'm indoors and someone puts pressure on. Oh, I pressed the mic. Maybe not this. I'm Ghastly Satana, and I'm an artist. I write poetry. I don't know if you call me a poet or whatever, but I do write poetry. When I was growing up, that wasn't really something that you were like, yeah, I'm a poet. I write poetry. Like in the neighborhood I grew up in, it was a suburb of Toronto, and saying something like that was like a prelude to getting your ass kicked or being mocked at least. At the very least, you would be mocked and ostracized. And, well, that's okay. That's what kids do. It makes you a little bit better every time they pick on you and you deal with it in your own way. You get a little wiser. I know I wanted to talk about the afterlife, but I really don't know what that really entails. I don't think anybody really does. There's endless possibilities. Like, maybe do we ever really die? And we just keep recycling. You know, some people believe in reincarnation. Some people think that when you die, that's it. This is a one-off. You get one shot at the party. And then other people think, well, maybe there's an afterlife and you go and spend some time in the clouds or whatever. I don't know about all that. Like, I feel like that near-death experience I had was so totally unrealistic that I survived, that maybe I did die, and in another plane of existence, they had my funeral and everybody came to it and cried a bit or laughed a bit or whatever. And the thing is, though, I don't know. Like, the only thing I can think of that it sort of describes what I'm talking about is David Lynch in season 3 of Twin Peaks: The Return puts in the idea of a tulpa. And I'm not really sure where that comes from culturally, but I wonder if perhaps that's like what's going on. Like, maybe when I think I died, I didn't really die. I just transferred my consciousness into another version of myself that already knew all the same things. But everything's been a little bit different since then. Everything's just a little bit weird. And then there's the thing with the, what do you call it? The CERN. I think things changed in 2012 when they busted open that machine. And maybe they ended the world and every one of us went to a different strange set of conscious feelings or something familiar, but something's wrong. You know, there is a feeling that something's wrong. And let's get to the bottom of it. What's wrong? You know, the thing with the lion lies down with the lamb, that was a scripture I remembered from being a kid. It's even in some of my songs I wrote. But now, if you look at the Bible and you look up that scripture, it says the wolf lies down with the lamb. Now, does anyone remember that as a kid? I don't remember it. And then there was that guy in the Beatles movie where the guy gets hit by a bus and he wakes up in another dimension, but he's himself and he remembers everything. And in the dimension he's in, nobody knows the Beatles, and he rips off the Beatles. He starts rewriting the Beatles lyrics to the best of his ability, and he becomes a big pop star. It was a funny movie. I don't know what the hell it was called. I don't know. But yeah, that kind of thing. Like, ever since I died, and I didn't die, everything's been a little bit weird. And right now I'm going to talk about rock and roll as one of my favorite things in the world. I couldn't imagine my life without rock and roll. My childhood, my parents were like, we came from one country and moved to another country, which was, here. And my dad was doing all right. He was in construction. He was a millwright. And he had a really good vinyl collection. He liked to collect records. He liked country music, and he liked Motown, and he liked jazz. And he liked traditional music from back home in Ireland. But the thing that really caught my attention when I was a child was the Elvis records that my mom would play, and she'd teach us to dance. And we would dance around in the living room listening to Elvis, and it really formed some happy memories. The king of rock and roll, they say. And so Elvis, and then my cousins were a little bit older, and I had an older brother, but they were like just so much older that they introduced him to Led Zeppelin. So one year for Christmas, my brother gets Zeppelin too, and of course, I know how to operate the turntable, and whenever I was unsupervised, I would just put records on and play them. There was even one time I did a coloring experiment with Nana Muscuri's records, and I drew pictures all over. Pencil crayon on vinyl looks pretty cool. Don't recommend you do that to your records, though. Not a really good idea. But yeah, so my taste in rock and roll started pretty young. It was more advanced than I was, and I just happened to, be lucky enough to get that. And I was born in 1971, and so I was around for the Satanic Panic. And of course, coming from a religious household, or at least half religious household, the Satanic Panic was like a big deal. I had records like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Ozzy Osbourne and some of the Sabbath with Dio. And me and my buddy Johnny went and dug into his brother's record collection, and I got my first taste of Ozzy Black Sabbath, and I borrowed one of the records on a promise that I wouldn't damage it. So I brought it home and recorded it, and for show and tell, I wrote down all the words of War Pigs, and I said it in class, and nobody knew what I was talking about. So anyway, that rock and roll led me to, that when I was like 11, 12, 13, 14, Motley Crue came out, and then my cousin thought I was just like silly, and he introduced me to Metallica, and I was like actually literally scared of Metallica at first. but not nearly as scared as like a little while later. Me and some buddies were partying up in the woods, and a friend of mine loaned me a tape by Slayer, and I put it in my cassette. We're in the woods, and I have to walk home. I'm a little stoned, and I'm a little drunk, and I'm a teenager, and I got my headphones on, and I put on Slayer, and it was like nothing I'd ever heard before. I mean, Metallica was sort of like that, but this was fucking crazy. And I got right into it, and then I went home and I dubbed it, and then I brought, I'm sorry, piracy acts and whatever, but I dubbed it so I'd have my first copy of Slayer. And yeah, that turned into, like, in the 80s, these bands were putting new stuff out, and it was great. But around 1988, bands like Death and there was like Deicide, Morbid Angel, and all these bands from Florida. And up in Buffalo, we had Cannibal Corpse, and there was an Earache Records compilation sampler thing I got, and it had Morbid Angel on it, and I kept playing over and over Chapel of Ghouls. And I wish I had the way to get the rights to play music on this, because music is like one of my favorite things. But death metal, and then the shit that happened in Norway, I didn't hear about that for years. Like that whole thing was happening at the same time. And in the early 90s, I was in my early 20s, so I was having a fun time. And I didn't know really much about the Norwegian thing till after I heard a British revamp of like the Norwegian black metal was like British black metal, like Venom, and then there was like Celtic Frost and shit like that. Bathory from, I guess they're from Sweden. But the thing with the Norwegian metal came to me through British metal again, through Cradle of Filth. And when I started listening to Cradle of Filth, I was like, oh, what's all this other stuff? Holy shit. And then I went down that rabbit hole. But now, of course, I'm also, because I grew up listening to Elvis, I have a fondness for rockabilly and psychobilly. All kinds of music I listen to. It's fun. And if you don't have a record collection, I recommend that you go out and buy yourself a turntable and a stereo and start building a collection. Somebody told me recently that I should specialize my collection to be something like all about blues, or all about R&B, or all about funk, or all about whatever. And I decided that I think I'm going to make mine about extreme metal, like death metal and black metal are my particular favorites. So I think I'm gonna start. And I just got some records recently, and I'm pretty pleased as punch. But yeah, like I said, if I could play snippets of people's music, I would give you an idea. But if you could go through the names I just said, and there's like, you know, a million bands that everyone, when they're living their best deal, like, you accumulate these things in your life, like products or like art that people make, and they become you. It becomes a part of you. And so the best way to hold on to that nostalgia or that feeling, I find, is this is the newest record I bought. I don't know if you can see that. It's De Mysterious Dom Satanis by Mayhem. It's possibly one of the craziest records I ever heard. Welcome to the wonderful world of Ghastly. I got a minute here, I'm going to take out a tarot deck, and I'm going to pick one card and talk about one card only and see which card we find here. So first, let me shuffle a little bit. And the top card is the card I'm going to pick right now. And it is the Five of Cups. So, I don't know if you can see that. Five of Cups, ladies and gentlemen. Five of Cups is kind of a card of sorrow. It's like spilled wine and regrets and everything. But, like, one of the things someone told me one time is like, look, there's, two cups still standing. So if you were drinking wine, you still got 2 big glasses of wine, and then there's a river over there. So if you're thirsty, you can just go over and fill up the other cups, and you have your cups again, and you start all over again. So it's not a point of giving up or anything like that. It's kind of like a reset, but like take in what you can and do the right things, and you'll be back on track. That's my tarot reading for you today. The Five of Cups. Well, I kind of jumped all over the place, and I'm getting used to this, as I said before, filming and all this stuff. But I think that what I'm going to do is just have fun. We're just going to have fun. And welcome to the wonderful world of Ghastly. I'm glad you tuned in, and if you've watched this long, thank you. Thank you very much.